Shock erupted across the global BTS community when Jungkook, the golden magne often celebrated for his strength and resilience, was suddenly seen breaking down in the arms of Kim Taehyung. The tears were not hidden behind stage lights, nor carefully tucked away from the eyes of millions. They were raw, unfiltered, and painfully visible. What should have been a moment of celebration, his birthday, transformed into a scene of vulnerability that left the world stunned. And standing nearby, Park Jimin, himself struggling with illness, appeared deeply moved, his expression betraying both empathy and sorrow. The central question that has ignited debate everywhere is piercing in its simplicity. What happened that night, and why did Jungkook's tears flow so freely in Taehyung's embrace? The incident unfolded during a live stream meant to connect Jungkook with ARMY on his special day. Global landmarks were lit in his honor. Fan projects blossomed across every continent, and social media overflowed with tributes. Yet the most unforgettable image from that night was not the spectacle of love from millions, but the sight of Jungkook's composure cracking. His laughter, his candid remarks, even his gratitude toward fans were punctuated by subtle pauses and sighs that sharp-eyed viewers could not ignore. The absence of Jimin, his closest companion throughout BTS's journey, hung over the event like a shadow. Fans, accustomed to seeing members celebrate each other's milestones, noticed the silence immediately. Was it merely circumstance, or was there something heavier beneath the surface? The live stream appeared cheerful enough. Jungkook joked about small details, thanked ARMY, and carried the familiar warmth that fans know so well. But behind that warmth, an undertone of heaviness was unmistakable. Observers reported that off-camera, Jungkook seemed restless, his eyes betraying the weight of unspoken emotions. Later, during a private gathering, he was seen leaning into Taehyung's arms, tears running freely as Taehyung held him quietly, without words. The embrace was tender, steady, and impossible to misinterpret as anything but sincere. It begged the question, why would Jungkook, a man celebrated by millions, seek refuge in that moment of private sorrow? The symbolism was striking. Here was Jungkook, his face projected on screens across the world, his name shining in lights from Times Square to Tokyo, yet none of that mattered in the face of what he felt missing. The adoration of millions could not replace the comfort of one brother's presence. And it was Taehyung, another anchor in Jungkook's long journey, who became the safe space he needed. Fans quickly linked the tears to Jimin, who has been reported to be unwell, and speculation spread rapidly. Was Jungkook's visible grief a reflection of Jimin's condition? Or was it something far more personal, an exhaustion carried silently until it broke in that one embrace? What unsettled millions was not only Jungkook's tears, but Jimin's own reaction. Witnesses noted how Jimin's eyes filled with emotion as he watched, visibly touched by Jungkook's display of care and by Taehyung's quiet comfort. For Jimin, who himself has been under pressure and struggling with health, the moment must have carried an unbearable weight. To see Jungkook cry, perhaps out of concern for him, was both moving and heartbreaking. It reminded fans that BTS, so often portrayed as unshakable, remained deeply human, capable of pain, fear, and unspoken longing. Social media platforms became the stage for intense dissection. Every sigh, every glance, every flicker of expression was scrutinized. Clips of Jungkook's eyes watering before changing topics went viral, with captions suggesting hidden grief. Taehyung's silent embrace was replayed endlessly, analyzed for meaning. Was he shielding Jungkook from breaking further? Was the world witnessing a private truth slip into public view? Or was this simply an innocent moment between friends, magnified by the hunger of millions desperate to decode every gesture? The ethical dimension cannot be ignored. Are fans justified in tying Jungkook's sorrow directly to Jimin's condition when no explicit words were spoken? Does speculating about Jimin's health respect their humanity? Or does it turn their bond into a spectacle consumed by strangers? The loyalty of ARMY is undeniable, but so too is the danger of mistaking vulnerability for confirmation. The absence of answers only deepens the intrigue, leaving the narrative suspended between fact and interpretation. What makes this moment so haunting is its paradox. On one hand, Jungkook's birthday was a global celebration, his image immortalized in lights and landmarks. On the other, the defining image of that night was not one of triumph, but of fracture. His tears, his need for Taehyung's arms, revealed the fragile humanity beneath the armor of fame. And in that fragility, fans found both heartbreak and connection. It was a reminder that no matter how bright the spotlight, it cannot erase the weight of personal bonds or the pain of their absence. The questions remain unanswered, and perhaps they always will. Did Jungkook cry because of Jimin's absence or health? Did the overwhelming burden of fame finally collapse into one unguarded moment? Or is the world constructing a narrative that fits its own desires, projecting meaning onto silence? Without confirmation, the truth lies in shadows. Yet the power of that moment, the embrace, the tears, Jimin's visible reaction, cannot be dismissed by in the end. Jungkook's birthday will not be remembered solely for its grand tributes, but for the unguarded second when the strongest appeared fragile, when Taehyung's arms became a sanctuary, and when Jimin's eyes betrayed unspoken emotion. That moment, whether understood fully or not, stands as a mirror reflecting both the humanity of idols and the complicity of audiences who consume their pain as narrative. And so, the unresolved question lingers. Was it truly because of Jimin that Jungkook broke down? Or was it something deeper, a fracture too complex for outsiders to fully grasp? As millions continue to replay the images, dissect the silence, and project meaning onto every detail, the mystery only grows. What remains certain is that Jungkook's tears have become symbolic, an unintentional confession that no amount of global adoration can outweigh the absence of one brother, and that even legends break when the silence grows too heavy. Readers are left with a final dilemma. Do you truly believe that Jungkook's tears were tied to Jimin, or do you suspect that the narrative was shaped by perception, amplified by media, and consumed by millions hungry for meaning? Can we trust what we saw, or do we accept that truth itself may remain elusive? In that ambiguity lies the true weight of this moment, a moment that has already become a lasting chapter in the story of BTS, not for its grandeur, but for its fragile humanity. The enduring resonance of this incident lies not only in the spectacle of Jungkook's visible tears, but in the questions they force us to confront about authenticity, loyalty, and perception in a world that rarely allows public figures to remain private. Millions of fans are still debating whether his breakdown was purely personal or a direct reflection of Jimin's condition and absence. The complexity of the situation arises because Jungkook and Jimin are not just colleagues. Their bond has been publicly witnessed for over a decade. That closeness makes silence feel louder, absence feel heavier, and every unspoken word resonate with amplified meaning. Yet the ambiguity remains. Was Jungkook truly crying out of concern for Jimin, or was it the accumulated burden of expectations, solitude, and the impossible demands of carrying the hopes of millions? The embrace with Taehyung has since been dissected with almost forensic precision. Analysts of body language, casual fans, and seasoned followers alike replayed the footage repeatedly, noting Jungkook's trembling shoulders, the subtle firmness of Taehyung's grip, the silence that spoke more than any sentence could. For many, that single moment of contact confirmed their fears, that Jungkook had reached an emotional breaking point. For others, it raised an entirely different alarm. If even idols who are loved unconditionally can collapse so publicly, what does that say about the invisible pressures suffocating them daily? Taehyung's calm presence underscored the importance of solidarity within the group, a reminder that sometimes the greatest strength lies not in standing tall, but in allowing oneself to be held. Meanwhile, Jimin's reaction, though far less dramatic, was equally revealing. Observers described him as appearing quietly overwhelmed, his expression betraying a mix of gratitude, guilt, and empathy. For someone reported to be unwell, witnessing Jungkook cry so openly, possibly out of concern for him, must have been both touching and deeply unsettling. It was a reminder of how intertwined their lives are and how the well-being of one inevitably impacts the other. Fans have often celebrated their brotherhood, but that night, the emotional interdependence became undeniable. Even without words, Jimin's presence in the moment made it clear that this was not just about one man's tears, but about a network of bonds tested under extraordinary weight. Yet in the absence of official explanation, speculation thrives unchecked. Some argue that linking Jungkook's tears directly to Jimin's health risks reducing complex emotions into simplistic headlines. Others counter that the context is impossible to ignore, that Jimin's condition, Jungkook's visible distress, and Taehyung's embrace form a sequence too interconnected to dismiss. This tension between cautious skepticism and emotional certainty has split the global fandom. Every social platform became a battleground of theories, with one side demanding restraint and the other insisting that silence itself was confirmation. This debate reveals something larger than BTS. It exposes the fragile relationship between audiences and the celebrities they follow. When public figures show vulnerability, do we honor it by respecting their silence? Or do we exploit it by weaving narratives that may or may not be true? Jungkook's tears have forced this uncomfortable question into the open. If the moment was genuine, the ethical concern is whether consuming and amplifying his pain as spectacle strips it of dignity. If it was misinterpreted, the risk is that millions of people have built an emotional drama upon a false premise, proving how easily perception can override fact. And yet, perhaps the significance of that night does not lie in the truth of why Jungkook cried, but in the undeniable fact that he did cry, openly and without pretense. His vulnerability shattered the illusion of invincibility often projected onto idols. It revealed that even under the brightest lights, even surrounded by adoration, loneliness and fear can intrude. Taehyung's embrace and Jimin's emotional response did not resolve the mystery but deepened it, leaving fans caught between empathy and speculation. The lasting power of this moment rests in its ambiguity. It is at once deeply personal and intensely public, simultaneously a confession and a riddle. The world may never know with certainty whether Jungkook's tears were for Jimin, for himself, or for the crushing weight of both. But what is certain is that the image of him breaking in Taehyung's arms, with Jimin watching in silence, has already become a defining memory in BTS's history. It is a reminder that even legends bleed, even the strongest bonds ache, and sometimes the most unforgettable truths are spoken not in words, but in tears. Now the final question turns to the readers themselves. Do you accept this moment at face value, or do you interrogate the narrative being woven around it? Do you believe Jungkook's tears were a direct reflection of Jimin's struggles, or do you suspect that fans and media alike projected their own fears and hopes onto a fleeting, fragile moment? Whatever answer you choose, the truth remains the same. The embrace, the tears, and the silence will continue to echo, leaving their mark not only on Jungkook, Jimin, and Taehyung, but on the millions who witnessed it and cannot forget. In an era where digital information circulates with unprecedented speed, the boundary between verified fact and unverified speculation has become increasingly fragile. What was once a slow and deliberate process of news dissemination has now transformed into a landscape dominated by real-time updates, viral trends, and algorithm-driven visibility. Yet, in such a volatile environment, one must ask, how much of what we consume is grounded in verifiable truth, and how much is simply the product of carefully designed narratives meant to capture attention at any cost? When reports surfaced across TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and other platforms concerning the supposed emotional breakdown of a beloved public figure, many audiences rushed to form immediate opinions. But should a single video clip, an out-of-context tweet, or a selectively edited live stream truly dictate our perception of reality? Is it not more prudent to pause and ask, who benefits from this story, and to what extent might it have been deliberately constructed to generate controversy? Every digital artifact, be it a fan-recorded video, a trending hashtag, or a viral headline, possesses the potential to shape public consciousness. But can we truly rely on these fragments as accurate representations of reality, or are they no more than illusions designed to manipulate emotions? Consider, for instance, the sudden appearance of synchronized narratives across multiple platforms. Does such uniformity suggest truth, or does it rather hint at an orchestrated attempt to engineer public discourse? The risk lies in the speed at which individuals internalize these narratives without subjecting them to rigorous examination. How often do readers investigate the original source of a claim before sharing it further? How frequently do they consider whether the individuals behind such claims possess credible expertise, or whether their motivations may stem from the desire for virality, monetization, or notoriety? And most importantly, when was the last time one paused to recognize that not everything presented as news is, in fact, news? Furthermore, one must confront the deeper ethical implications of sensationalism. When an event is amplified beyond its verifiable boundaries, who ultimately bears the consequences? Is it the public figure whose reputation is unfairly shaped by half-truths? Is it the audience whose emotions are exploited for profit? Or is it the broader society, which becomes increasingly desensitized to misinformation? In such circumstances, the responsibility does not lie solely with the media outlets or content creators. It also lies with the consumers who choose to engage uncritically with what they are presented. If this story is indeed genuine, it reveals the profound vulnerability of even the most celebrated individuals, reminding us that fame offers no shield against emotional struggle. But if, conversely, it proves to be fabricated, then what does it say about the state of our media landscape? Does it not expose the alarming extent to which deception can be normalized, rewarded, and even celebrated in the digital era? Should this not disturb us deeply, forcing us to confront the uncomfortable possibility that truth itself has become a negotiable commodity? The difficulty lies in verification. With so many disparate accounts, edited clips, and contradictory statements, how can an average observer distinguish fact from fiction? Must we accept uncertainty as an unavoidable condition of modern media consumption? Or do we, as critical individuals, have a duty to seek corroboration before forming judgments? When a claim arises, should it not be examined through multiple independent sources, weighed against contextual evidence, and scrutinized for logical consistency? It is not enough to ask whether the event occurred. One must also interrogate why it has been framed in a particular manner. Why are certain details emphasized while others are omitted? Why are particular emotional tones embedded into headlines and captions? Could it be that the framing itself, more than the facts, is intended to shape how audiences feel? If so, are we not complicit in our own manipulation when we consume such content without questioning its design? This is not a matter of cynicism, but of intellectual responsibility. Blind acceptance is as dangerous as blind denial. To accept every narrative uncritically risks falling prey to propaganda. To reject every narrative outright risks closing oneself off from reality. The balance lies in skepticism, not skepticism as dismissal, but skepticism as inquiry. Should we not, therefore, adopt a posture of relentless questioning, asking at every stage, what is the source? What is the evidence? And what might be the hidden motive? Moreover, let us confront an unsettling question. Does the audience secretly prefer sensationalism over truth? If a sober and factual account fails to entertain, while a dramatized fabrication provokes intense discussion, which will dominate public attention, are we, as consumers, not partially responsible for incentivizing the very media practices we claim to disdain? If views, likes, and shares serve as the ultimate currency, do we not reward deception whenever we uncritically amplify dubious claims? This cycle can only be broken if audiences embrace a more disciplined form of engagement. Instead of instantly sharing, should one not first verify? Instead of believing the loudest voice, should one not consider the quiet but credible source? Instead of being swayed by emotional appeal, should one not evaluate whether the facts withstand scrutiny? Each of these questions is not merely academic. They are practical imperatives for anyone navigating today's digital sphere. Thus, the matter at hand extends beyond the specifics of a single story. It compels us to reflect on the very mechanisms through which truth is constructed, contested, and consumed in contemporary society. When confronted with conflicting claims, will we choose the path of critical reflection, or will we surrender to the seduction of sensationalism? When invited to participate in viral discourse, will we act as amplifiers of unverified content, or as guardians of intellectual rigor? The time has come for readers to answer for themselves. Do you genuinely believe this event occurred as reported, or do you suspect it to be a carefully engineered hoax? Do you perceive the sources, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and others, as reliable conveyors of truth, or merely as platforms of performance where reality and fiction intermingle? And most crucially, what does your answer reveal about your own susceptibility to manipulation in a world where spectacle often triumphs over substance? Ultimately, the responsibility rests not only with journalists, platforms, or influencers, but with each individual reader. The decision to believe, to doubt, to investigate, or to ignore is a profoundly personal one. But it is also a decision that carries collective consequences. For when entire societies abandon the discipline of critical thinking, truth itself becomes endangered. And in such a world, one must ask, can democracy, justice, or even basic human dignity survive if truth is no longer respected as a value worth protecting? Therefore, let this article not serve as a mere report, but as a provocation. Let it unsettle, disturb, and compel you to reflect on your own role in shaping the media environment. Will you remain a passive consumer, or will you rise to the challenge of being an active, critical participant? The choice is yours, and perhaps, in that choice, lies the only safeguard we still possess against the collapse of truth in the digital age.